Thank y'all for coming. My name is Carolyn Justice Henson. I'm the Communications and Community Relations Officer at PWC, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight. I'm going to make some assumptions. You are here because you received a mailing from us. Is that correct? It was in a really bright envelope like that, so you couldn't miss it? Very good. Okay. The information we're going to talk about tonight is open for everybody that are our customers, but because you received the mailing, this information is specifically for your property and location, and we'll explain that as we go. We know that when we do these types of meetings, you may have other questions that may not be related to the topic we're talking about tonight. If you have something that is not a part of this, we can address those at the end of the meeting. So if you have those questions, just let us know. And so we are here tonight to provide you information on what we call Operation Clean and Clear. And hopefully from the information that you have received, you're learning a little bit about it. This is a project that PWC is doing to identify the types of material that are our water service lines. And this project is required by the EPA, and we're going to explain what those requirements are. But ultimately, it is to help us and all water utilities continue to protect people from lead exposure. We are here in City Hall tonight. This meeting is being recorded so that anyone who could not attend, it will be available on our website and may also play on Fay TV. So just make you aware that we're all being recorded. So be on our P's and Q's, right? PWC, I'm going to see if I can operate this here. I hope that you know that PWC is committed to delivering safe drinking water to all of our customers. And the water that we deliver to your home is lead-free. But while our water is lead-free, that doesn't mean that the pipes in your plumbing that it's going through are lead-free. And that's exactly the purpose of this project, because this project helps us continue to protect your water by identifying the types of material that are used in all water service lines, not only those maintained by PWC, but the ones that are on the customer side of the meter. And I have our experts here tonight that are going to share all of that with you. So my experts tonight, they like the way I'm calling them experts there. They're our subject matter experts. They're going to be sharing some information with you. Misty Manning is our Water Resources Engineering Manager. Jason Green is our Water Resources Treatment Facility Manager. Michael Smith is our Water Resources Asset Management Coordinator, and so they are going to help us with the presentation tonight. Just to let you know the things that we are going to cover, we're going to give you some background and history of the rules established by the EPA to help prevent lead exposure. We're going to, if you're not familiar with lead and how that can impact your water, we're going to tell you how that exposure comes from plumbing material. We're going to share with you how PWC protects our drinking water from lead exposure, and then tell you more about the project and where we are right now. And then we're going to get a tutorial on how to identify the pipes and help with this survey. And when you came in, you received a brochure and some handouts, and so we're going to refer to some of those during the presentation. The same things that are on the slides that you see are in there, and we also have a website. All of this information is on our website. So anything we show you, ultimately you'll be able to find it there. And as we work through the presentation, please ask us questions as you have them If we know the question is going to be covered later in the presentation, we may ask you to hold that. Or if I think we may take the conversation off course, we may ask you if we can hold that to the end out of respect for everybody here. But we definitely will answer all your questions. So now I'd like to ask Misty Manning to come up and share a little bit about the history of the lead and copper rule.
Okay, can y'all hear me? I had to adjust it a little bit. So in 1974, the EPA established the Safe Drinking Water Act. And from that act, in 1986, all lead piping used for construction and plumbing in houses was banned. And that included the use of lead solder on copper piping. And that's why we call this the lead and copper rule, is because you have lead piping, and then you also have copper piping with the lead solder around it. So if you're not familiar with that, that's why we call it that. So since that time when that was banned through the Safe Water Drinking Act, PWC, as we've discovered lead fittings, we have replaced those in our system. So based on our current knowledge of our system, we really expect there to be no lead in our system, no lead pipes found on our side. But that's where we need the public's help, because we don't know what's on the customer side. So in 1991, the lead and copper rule itself was actually established. And what that did, that required utilities such as ourselves to do sample testing of customers who had known lead in their plumbing. And it also required us to implement corrosion control measures, which we will cover that in a further slide. But the gist of it is where we use zinc orthophosphate as a treatment as part of our treatment process in with our water. And what that does is it coats the pipe and keeps the lead from infiltrating. But Jason will tell you a lot more about that than I can. So kind of understanding where we get exposure from lead in our plumbing, it mainly, if it is found in drinking water, it mainly occurs due to your plumbing materials when they corrode and get in there. In your home, if you don't have lead pipes, your fixtures are common places. Your faucets, when those nice Kohler faucets that you get, sometimes they have lead in them. And so that's where you would get it as it runs through that. The lead pipes actually were common in older cities, so we do anticipate, like in the older portions of Fayetteville, that we may find some lead pipes on the customer side. But the majority of our materials, we do feel we have replaced as we've done rehabilitation efforts. So I'll let Jason kind of explain a little bit more on the corrosion control and how we work to prevent lead from being in the drinking water.
Good evening, everyone. Like Misty said, we use sorry, can you hear me okay? We use a zinc orthophosphate, which is a chemical that's used in just about every water utility in the country. And what it does is it's a pacification agent. So we have zinc in there, which zinc will corrode preferentially to anything else. And what we're trying to do is prevent galvanic corrosion from happening out in our system, where you have two dissimilar metals, similar to what you see here with this copper and brass fitting. Usually what you run into in houses, you have a multitude of different materials throughout, from it could be a ductile iron pipe out in the street, and then you'll have a copper service going to your house into a galvanized line or into a brass fixture. And a lot of times with those dissimilar metals is when you can start having corrosion occurring, and you can start having lead leaching, which most of the lead that you see in the South comes from the solder that's used to fuse copper lines together. So that zinc orthophosphate, the zinc corrodes preferentially, helps take some of that corrosion energy from the solution. The phosphate coats the inside of the pipes. We don't use a whole lot of it. We typically use about 1 milligram per liter, which, to give you perspective, is like one ping pong ball in a million. So it's a very small amount. It's just enough to make sure that we're doing enough to keep it from leaching out. And it has worked really well for us because you can see in the slide that we've not had any lead detection in our last round of sampling. And I think since 1991, we only had 2. And it was never near the point of where it would create an action level issue where we had to do additional treatment processes. So we do actively monitor our corrosion in the system. We use some mild steel. We call them coupons, but they're just little rectangles of mild steel throughout the system. And we look and we take those out once a quarter. Are we losing any weight on them? Are we gaining weight on them? If we're losing weight, then we know we're kind of corrosive and it's wearing the metal down, and we adjust our treatment. But ideally, you want it to stay 0. You don't want to gain, you don't want to lose. And we're really good about keeping it right there in that little narrow window. So we're going to continue to do that. We're always looking at ways of improving the treatment process. But like Misty said and Michael talked about, a lot of it has to do with the materials found inside our customers' houses. Any questions or going to Mike? Thank you.
So in 2021, the EPA established new requirements and issued what they call the lead and copper rule revisions. And those revisions required that water utilities create a public inventory of all of the water service lines in your system and note if there are any lead lines in the system. And it also required additional testing of schools and daycares, as well as a review of our corrosion control treatment system. And so, as he mentioned, we have an excellent corrosion control treatment program. And so it was recommended in the review of ours that we make no changes because it is working as it should. So that is a kudos to our treatment processes. So all community water systems in the United States are required to do this, and we have to publish this information so that people can find it on our website. So over the last 2 years, since 2021, we've been working on an inventory. To put it in perspective, we have roughly 100,000 water customers and water laterals in our system. And we have a system that has been in place since the early 1900s. So we have some very good records, and then we have some records not so good, obviously. So we've went through our as-builts, and we've done SUE digs in the field so that we could kind of get an idea of where they are. Right now, we still have roughly 15% of our system that is unknown. And the majority of those are on the customer side because historically we don't go past the meter. You know, that is the customer's responsibility. That would be a plumber that would work on that. So we don't have records on anything on the customer side. As the slide says, we have found no lead pipes in our system as we've been doing this, which is what we expected. We have found some galvanized lines, and those are located on you'll see those in the inventory when you go and look, but we have found no lead lines, and we really don't expect that. We do have a goal. The EPA has set a goal that all utilities have to publish and turn this inventory into the EPA by October of this year, October 2024. And so our goal is to have that inventory complete by then, and therefore we're asking for your help. So until we can document them all, we will have to continue to ask for your help. And so that's why we're trying to educate the public, get this information out there so that we can make sure that we're compliant with the EPA's requirements.
Okay, so I'm going to cover some of the communications around this project, the first of which is the letter that you received. And part of the reason that we sent the letter is because you will soon receive a postcard, which is the actual inventory. And there was a copy of that when you signed in. Because it's a postcard, it's hard, you can't put all the information that we put in the letter, so we wanted people to be on the lookout for it, so that's the reason we sent the letters last week. The postcards are scheduled to start mailing within the next week or so. We want to cover a little bit about those. They're only sent to customers that we don't have the records, they're unknown. So you may have a neighbor who didn't get one because we know what types of materials they have for one reason or another. So it's not every customer, it's only the ones that are unknown. And as Misty said, that's about 10 to 15% of our customers. They are being mailed by a third-party vendor called 120 Water, and they will be returned to Indianapolis, not here in Fayetteville. They are branded with the Operation Clean and Clear logo as well as the PWC, and it provides links to our website as well as how to identify the pipes video. And customers can respond in multiple ways. They can mail back the survey card, and there's no postage required. There will also be on the postcard a link so someone could put that information online. There is also an option for emailing and calling as well. But we're going to take a quick look at the postcard. So as you can see from the arrow there, it does give you 4 options to respond. This is a sample, so it currently does not have the link for online, but when you receive it in the mail, it will. Just above the house, you will see where it says property needing verification. It will list the actual address of the place that we need. And we have, as you know, a lot of landlords in this community. So those addresses are very important. So when they get it, they know which properties. Obviously, if you live in the house and you own it, yours will be the same. We do have language on there in Spanish. So if anyone needs a Spanish version, they can go online and retrieve that, and then it will walk them through it. On the back side of the postcard is the actual survey, and that is the same type of survey that you would see when you go online. Just like the front with the location, in the bottom right-hand corner, you see where it says account ID and location ID. Those IDs will be populated with a code so that when our third-party vendor gets it, it's another way for them to code it. So that is not something that you would have to fill out if you're wondering what the account or location ID is. And to make you aware, we're trying to encourage people to help us with this project, and so any surveys that we receive back by March 31st will be entered into drawings for bill credits as well. So we're hoping that will encourage some people to help us with that. Just a couple of other things. As I mentioned, if you mail this back, there is no postage necessary. Again, because we do know that there are people that attempt to take advantage of customers, and we know there's people that are suspicious, and we know that there's scams out there. We just wanted to point out that it does go back to 120 Water in Indianapolis, and then you can see that it is branded, and we say we are partnering with 120 Water. Unfortunately, some of the scammers and all of those people make it challenging for us to try to communicate, because we do imagine there will be people who will receive it and immediately think that it is not legitimate. So we're doing everything we can to help let people know that it is. I mentioned that we have a website. I just wanted to make you aware of how to locate that on the PWC website. You can either search for it, or if you look at the About PWC menu, there is an Operation Clean and Clear link. We have information on our lead testing, our compliance, how to ID the pipes, and ultimately the map. And Misty is going to share with you some details about the map. But this is a work in progress. And as we get different information, for instance, once this meeting is recorded, we will have a link to the video. So anything pertaining to this project that can be of help to customers will be listed on this website as we move forward. But Misty is going to come up and give you a little walkthrough of the map.
Okay, so as Carolyn said, this is actually on our website. It went live today. We've been working on it in the background, but we wanted to make it available to the public so that they could also see if they had questions of where they were. So this is what you see when you open it up. And you have a search bar address up here. And one thing to note that is when you search it, instead of typing out, let's say, Hay Street, you type out Hay ST. If you live on Owen Drive, you will type out Owen DR and so on. If you do not do that, it will not search. So just make sure you remember to do the abbreviations. So this is an overview of it, and it kind of shows you the areas. And the colors on these circles mean something, and the numbers tell you like how many we have in that area that we either know or don't know. The light blue is non-lead. We want to eventually see a whole map of light blue. The dark blue means we are unknown, and the yellow is if we found a galvanized line, and the red is if we have found lead. So we have a couple of examples where we have searched in the neighborhood and an actual address. And you'll see on here that we see a lot of light blue, but we also see some dark blue. And you also see we have two different sides. So if you have checks and it's light blue, that means on the customer side and on PWC side, it is non-lead, and we know the type. But you see in your neighborhood, you would have light blue, but also dark blue. So you may have received a letter because you have a dark blue question mark, but your neighbor has a check, so they did not receive a letter. So that's kind of very important to point out, because if your neighbor comes to you and says, well, I didn't get a letter, what in the world? That's why, because we were able to verify because we actually had information on their home. So in this case, this person has two checks, so they're good to go. Yes, that's what we want to see across the whole neighborhood. And so then we've got this one that shows you, of course, their neighbor across the street has two dark blue question marks, which means we don't know on our side. Based on the neighborhood, the age of the neighborhood, we think it's most likely not lead. So we can say unlikely lead. But since we don't know the customer side, we can't guarantee that. So we say material unknown. So this particular person has definitely received a letter. As we receive these back, Michael spends a lot of time in this. When 120 Water receives these back, they will be going in and updating this, and it updates daily, correct? So once we get your card, if it's no lead and we know the type, we'll put in there non-lead and PVC, polyethylene, whatever it is. So we'll make sure we do that. And so you will see it change. And Michael goes in every day just about and confirms things that we do know, things that we have found, and make sure that it's showing up correctly on this map. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Michael, and he's going to explain to you where you need to check in your home for your pipe materials.
Good evening. Everybody can hear me? Voice too deep. I'm sorry. My name is Michael Smith. Like Misty said, I'm just going to go over everything with you with some of the pipe and materials and how you could check. First thing I kind of want to point out, we're not asking anybody to do no type of excavation or anything like that. That want to stay away from that, because you will need to call 811 locates before you do that. The first diagram we're looking at is actually the actual water main, and you can see PWC, which is the public side that goes up to the water meter, and at that point, after the stub out, which is a piece of pipe most time PWC puts on the end of the water meter for the plumber to connect to, after that is actually the customer side. Normally on most homes or the newer homes, you'll have, with a crawl space, you have sometimes a cutoff switch. Most time right when it comes to the brick foundation. One thing on here that, like my home, I have a slab, so I don't have a crawl space. So actually for mine, I just went around to the water heater and the plumbing. I could tell what the material was around the plumbing. That's something I would recommend on that, no type of excavation on that. And I'm gonna go over a little bit of the pipes. Brass is still used a lot especially in our system as well, but brass is most time used as fittings. And the pipes, it is made of metal. It is kind of brown or a dull yellow colored. It also sometimes it can get green corrosive spots. Sometimes the green corrosive spots there could be something in the actual sole itself that's making it corrode. Also sometimes it could be just some type of moisture from a weak point in the actual pipe. You can scratch on brass. And most time brass is a threaded connections, and magnets will not stick. And over there we actually got a sample of a piece of brass. It's actually got 2 inserts, and then the middle is just a connecting piece. Copper is still used a lot in water companies. The reason why copper is used a lot is really durable. We have a lot of copper in our system still to this day, especially in the older parts that has never had no issues. It's just one of the materials that lasts a long time. It's dull, it's brown. It can, like a penny, everybody's seen a real copper penny, it can turn green. When you scratch it, it'll be shiny after you do that, and as well, magnets will not stick to copper as well. This is most of the newer homes nowadays. On the customer side, most of the time it's going to be made some form of plastic. PVC, polyethylene is very big. Polyethylene, it can be any color. I've seen white, I've seen black, I've seen blue. I've even said there's red polyethylene in my house. It will scratch easily, but you got to be careful. You want to scratch plastic because polyethylene, if you scratch it too hard, you will cause a leak. Yes. And no. And most of the time, polyethylene will have some type of brass insert or fitting, and majority of the time there'll be some type of connector to it. Sometimes they'll just use a regular metal clamp. Also, sometimes they'll use pinch clamps, and magnets will not stick to that as well. This right here, if anybody ever hears something, they say galvanized iron and galvanized steel. In my book, they're really the same thing. There's some different minerals that were made in the actual prefabrication of the pipes. The pipes are made of metal. Majority of the time, they're gray or they're in rust in color. When you see them rust in color, like the section we have right there, that was a piece that actually came out of the ground that's probably was in service from the 1950s to about the 1970s. They do not scratch easy. They also, magnets will stick to galvanized steel or galvanized iron. Another word for it is called wrought iron. If you ever see wrought iron, most of the time it's already got a little bit of pinhole size leaks in it. That's just a different type of mold they use to make that iron. And then the one everybody's talking about all the time is lead. Lead is pipes made of metal. They're gray in color. They scratch easy. Scratches will be shiny and silver in color. Lead pipes often bulge where they connect to plumbing. Magnets will not stick. Actually, if you can see on the picture of the side, so that's actually a picture of a lead gooseneck connected to a galvanized iron fitting right there. And that is actually right there is what they call a gooseneck. It's because it looks like a goose's head. The majority of the time they're actually they're tapped off the water mains, and then another piece of pipe was connected to that to run to the house. And from there, anybody got any questions for me? And one thing I just want to state that if you got something, you got an address for the unknowns, 10 to 15%. Most of the reason we don't know is water companies that we took over from another utility back in the day. Example, my mom lives off of Yakin Road, used to be ran by another company, so we didn't know what they put in the ground in that area. That's why we have 10 to 15% is areas we had to take over and stuff. So I actually got to check my mom's house this weekend and a couple of her neighbors. Y'all have a good evening. Thank you.
I agree with that because my neighborhood is the same. In fact, my neighborhood was the sample that you saw up there. So it's all over the place. It was built right in around the mid to late 80s, and so it's in question. And it was a system that PWC purchased years ago. So I recognize exactly what we're saying there. Let's see. So we've already shared with you about our website, and again, that includes details and resources for you. As we move through this project, if you have questions, you can call into PWC at 910-483-1382, and they will help get you to the appropriate person to answer your questions. And as we said earlier, customers who respond to the survey by the end of March will be entered into a drawing, or we're having several drawings for a $100 bill credit. At this time, that concludes our presentation portion, but we will open it up if anyone has any questions. If we don't have questions, our staff will still be here if you want to talk with them afterwards. And I want to remind you again that this meeting has been recorded and is going to be available online and most likely play on Fay TV. In your letter, you saw obviously tonight's meeting, but we do have 3 additional meetings which are listed on the letter. So if you have someone who does want to talk with somebody in person or hear this in person, we will have those on February 22nd, March 11th, and March 13th. And we do have them located in various locations of our service area. Also, if you have a neighborhood watch or a homeowners association, a church group, or if your neighbors just want to get together and have someone from PWC talk to them about this project, we can definitely do that. And if you will speak with someone at the table where you checked in, and they will give you the information of how to make that request. But we will be happy to arrange someone to come out and assist with that. I'd also like to say we are reaching out and we'll be working with other organizations such as the Council on Older Adults, the Vision Resource Center, and various organizations that we know may have populations that need additional help. So we will continue to work with them, as well as our local plumbers and our realtors and various organizations that can help us in collecting this information as well. So with that, please be on the lookout for your survey postcard. And again, our staff members will remain here if you have any questions. But we really thank you for joining us this evening and being interested in learning about this project. And we really appreciate your help, because we cannot do this by ourselves, definitely. So, and thank you. And any other questions before I close? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
So my question is there any kind of assistance that they could get to have someone to do that for them?
Yes, and her question is, if there's someone who is unable to check, will there be assistance? We are working on gathering some resources that can help customers who find themselves where they can't do that. It would be recommended if they call in to PWC the customer service can take their name and location and contact information, and then someone would contact them. But we are in the process of working on internal resources and maybe some external resources that can help us with that.
My second question, once the piping has been identified, if it's not to PWC standards, the homeowner is then required to replace the piping?
There are no requirements if your plumbing does indicate that you have lead. Currently, there are no requirements to change that. And we'd like to say if someone does find lead or lead solder, as was touched on earlier, our treatment process, our corrosion control does help keep that safe, but it would be a customer's responsibility or preference if they replace that. There is currently no requirements at this time. Yeah, as Misty said, the EPA, this revision continues to be revised, and I think they've just gone through another round of comments because I was reading up on that. So the EPA could eventually update that and say there are some requirements, but at this time, no requirements to make any changes.
In the future, if the requirements come down the pipeline, there again, on my street, most of the people are retired. And you all know to replace the piping is expensive.
Yes.
So would there be anything available to help with pay for it?
That is a great question. And we are continually looking for funding sources. If that were to happen, we will continue to do that and look for any type of resources that could help customers. I will say the biggest challenge with this is that every water system is required to do this, and so it is it's an uphill battle. We're in competition with a lot of people, but our staff is very aggressive and continues to look for that. So if those requirements do come, we would continue to try to make that happen. So, good question. Thank you.
So basically, you're saying to call the 483-1382 number and let them know that there's elderly people who are not able to go into the house
Yes.
and get their information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, what's that?
And make sure
Yeah, make sure when they call, just make sure they refer to the Operation Clean and Clear and that they were ones that received the information about not having to identify their plumbing, just to make sure they get the correct project. PWC has lots of projects happening. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, if not, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Did you have anything else, Misty?
I was going to say, Kathy had a question earlier that would be really good. Kathy had a question earlier that would be really good for everyone to know and have the resource. So I just kind of wanted to mention it. If you do look at your pipes or you already know what your plumbing is and you know that you have lead plumbing and you're concerned and would like it to be tested, on our website we have a list of testing laboratories that are local or in Raleigh that you can call and they'll send you a packet. You can take a sample and send it off to them and they can test it for you. So that is on our website under the Operation Clean and Clear in the corrosion control part.
The question you had about the material, there's something, if they do find lead on the customer side, the way the rule's written right now, we have to make 4 attempts a year to recommend that you replace it. Does not mean you have to replace it. If the house is sold, then to somebody else, then that person as well. Every year we have to, 4 times a year, let them know, hey, you have lead on your side. This is recommended to be replaced. But at no point does the customer have to replace anything on their side. To explain how the rule keeps changing real quick, this October is actually the initial inventory. We have to know the most we can on our side and the customer side. There's another inventory that goes into effect 3 years from that. We have to know all our unknowns and any type of galvanized requiring replacement or any type of lead services. At that inventory, at that point, then another, we will have to come together and make a decision how we're going to get customers assistance and how also PWC will start to replace the services as well. So project's never going to end. So once we get a handle on everything we know right now, unknown, then the newer homes, it's kind of simple. You can't put lead, you can't put galvanized. So when a newer home's created, they have to go on the website as well. It just be clicked off, not lead. So this is never going to end, just the beginning stages. It's going to hit the hardest for us and some of the customers, but we're going to work on to get everything right in the end. Yeah, have a good evening. Thank you.
So a couple of other things that we've received questions on that I thought would be good to kind of get out there. We have seen that there are filtration companies and bottled water companies that they know this rule is out there. They know, especially once we get our postcards out there and they see that, they will be coming and offering you whole home filtration systems and things such as that. That is not related to this, and that is not PWC driven. So if anyone contacts you for that, please contact PWC to confirm that. Obviously, you are able to do whatever you want on your home water system, but it is not something that PWC is driving. And I want to make sure that you understand that your water that you are drinking from PWC is free of lead. So I do want to make sure y'all know that. One other thing that we've been asked, and I know that it's in the back of a lot of people's mind, especially parents, what they're getting at their schools. So all schools and daycares that are within our service area, we identified those lines first so that we knew for sure what those lines were, what those materials were. So all of the daycares and schools that PWC serves, we already have those materials. So I did want to make sure that we put that out there. Again, thank y'all very much, and we look forward to partnering with you on this effort.
I'm going to piggyback on something that Misty said about the filtration companies. We were having this conversation before the meeting. There are also companies that send out information about repair insurance. They come frequently. I received one this week in my mailbox. They come in all different forms and fashion. That is completely up to a resident. I do believe sometimes they're not as forthcoming in the way they present themselves, but we do tell people before you sign up for anything, please do your homework. Perhaps talk with your insurance company to find out if you had that type of damage. Would anything be covered? But yes, please do your research before signing with anyone who offers you that type of protection. So, Misty?
So we would not be knocking on your door.
Yes.
We would only be coming if we told you.
Yes. And I had that on one of these earlier slides. Yes, just remember that for this project, unless you have called PWC and, as the lady mentioned, requested assistance, no one should be coming to your door and saying that they are partnering with PWC. Again, we try to warn people that the ones that try to take advantage of customers, but we are not, currently don't have anybody contracted to come to your home, to come inside your home to check anything. So again, if someone does come, please turn them away. If you need to call PWC, and we can document that as well. But we do want to make sure that our residents stay safe. And unfortunately, those that try to take advantage, they find every opportunity to do that. And which is really unfortunate when people are trying to gather information and take care of our customers. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking the time with us this evening.